Ayo YouTube, Flowcat here, and it is time for How Do I Sara. Super excited to bring you this episode because she's one of my favorite units, so let's get right into it. Welcome to the video. Before we dive in, I'd like to say a few things about what this video series is and what this video series is not. In this series, I will be analyzing each unit's kit as well as discussing how I utilize them in game. As well, I will discuss how I like to build them, what teams I like for the unit, and mechanics that I find useful or interesting. In this series, I am not advising you to do exactly what I do. I am not saying this is the best or optimal way to play each unit. This is simply what I do, and I'm sharing it in hopes that you find it useful, entertaining, or just interesting. Please keep this in mind during your responses in the comment section below, and as always, be respectful. Thanks. First, we will go over her skills, and then we'll discuss what role she plays in my teams. Sara's auto attack is standard for bow users and can be used to perform 5 consecutive strikes. After charging your aim shot for 2 seconds, you can shoot an arrow infused with electro at your enemies. Her E backsteps and gives you a charge for 18 seconds. This charge can be spent by doing a charge shot, which will leave a mark on the field. Shortly after it lands, it will explode, dealing AoE electro damage and providing an attack buff based on Kujou Sara's base attack to any unit within range of the skill. The buff lasts for 6 seconds once triggered, and this skill has a 10-second cooldown. Her burst calls down a pillar of lightning, dealing a ton of AoE electro damage. The pillar will then break into 4 clusters, which will spread outward, dealing smaller instances of AoE electro damage. Each strike of the burst can apply Sara's buff or refresh it. This burst has a high cost of 80 and a 20-second cooldown. The first passive talent increases the charge time of her aim shot by 60% so long as she retains the charge from her buff. The second passive talent will provide a small amount of energy to your entire team when her E strikes an enemy. This is useful only when your burst is almost up and you need like 1 or 2 more energy to hit the cap. It is clear to me after analyzing her kit that her primary role is as an amp or a buffer on quick swap teams. Her E provides a buff which takes no energy to activate. This can be used to buff the unit after Sara in the rotation. Her burst can also provide the buff, giving you another method to apply it when her E is on cooldown. When you invest into her damage, Sara also secondarily becomes a strong sub or burst DPS. For investments, I have her talents at 9, 13, 11. She's level 85 out of 90, and these are her stats. I'm running my Sara on an R3 Polar Star. I love how this boosts her personal damage, and that's why I'm using it. But as a support, Sacrificial Bow is great for resetting her cooldown on her E. Sara is also a fantastic user of the Elegy Bow, as her EQ rotation can easily proc the buff. Skyward Harp, having the highest base attack for bows right now, is the best option for boosting her buffing capabilities. For artifacts, I'm running my Sara on a 4-piece Thundering Fury set. I'll explain why I run her on this set a little bit more later when we get into her Constellations. Other fantastic sets for her would be 4-piece Noblesse, 4-piece Emblem for big burst damage, or even 2-piece Thundering Fury, 2-piece Noblesse. Now let's jump into the team building section. Alright, so I have 3 teams to show you all. In each team, Sara plays as a buffer and a sub DPS. I'll explain exactly how these teams work before each showcase. First up is Kokami, Sara, Amber, and Yoimiya. I'm using Whale Amber with Elegy, as well as Sara as a buffer for my Yoimiya. Kokami is also providing vape reactions when Masanori is not jumping around like crazy. Let's jump right into the footage. Next up is a really interesting team. We've got Kokami, Sara, Rosaria, and Kaching. Sara plays as the buffer for both Rosaria and Kaching, who are both burst DPSs in this team, and occasionally Kokami can be used as a temporary main DPS when her burst is up. The Superconduct and the C6 from Rosaria allows me to output a lot more clam damage from my Kokami as well. Let's look at the footage. Finally, I just wanted to show off a little bit in this video one of my whale comps. This is Raiden Shogun, Jin, Sara, and Kazuha. In this team composition, I have C6 Jin and C6 Kazuha. Together, they're able to shred Electro and provide insane healing and damage boosting capabilities for my Sara and my Raiden. As well, C4 Jin shredding Animo resistances, and Sara boosting Kazuha's personal damage. It's really strong. I hope you enjoy this showcase. And now we're going to move into the mechanics section. How you choose to play Kujou Sara will largely depend on how comfortable you are with bows. If you're very comfortable with bows, using her E to backstep and then dash canceling into a charge shot is a fantastic way to keep yourself out of trouble and output great sub DPS damage in each rotation. If you're not so comfortable with bows, I recommend just shooting her buff at the ground wherever you expect your unit to be, and then swap in and grab the buff. I recommend that as time goes on and you get more comfortable with applying her buff, that you try to aim her bow at the enemy so that you get the extra damage from her charge shot. It may seem minimal, but with a highly invested Sara, that can be a decent amount of damage. But yeah, at C0, she's actually a pretty simple unit. It's just that you have to get used to using her charge shot to apply the buff. Now we're going to move into the Constellation section. Her C1 gives her a cooldown reduction of 1 second on her E when a character grabs her buff. This can happen once every 3 seconds. Her C2 will leave an additional charge of her buff on the field as soon as she presses her E. This charge will blow up after 1 second and deal 30% of its original damage. C4 will increase the number of clusters that spread out from her burst from 4 to 6. Her C6 will provide a 60% crit damage bonus to all electro damage from anyone who captures her buff. Her C1 and C2 increases the frequency at which you can use her buff, and as well, it allows you to use it twice in every single rotation. This is undeniably really powerful for her because of the C1 and C2 and Thundering Fury 4-piece and a reaction team composition. I get 2 seconds off my cooldown every time I proc her E, which is 4 seconds per rotation and means that you have 100% uptime on her personal buff. This allows me to use her buff a lot more frequently. As well, the C1 does actually work when you cast her burst and apply the buff through that method. Her Constellations undeniably make her easier to play and a lot more effective in team compositions, but I would say that that's similar to every single unit in Genshin Impact, and I don't think it's particularly bad for Kujou Sara. Except for C6, her Constellations don't necessarily add to her power a lot, but they do add a lot to her kit mechanically, and especially her C1 and C2 allow you to utilize her a lot more effectively in team rotations. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you got to the end here and you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to my channel, and I've got a friendly Discord. It would mean a lot if you joined that. And as always, stay healthy, stay hydrated, peace.